The following program is a Nighthawk Network presentation.
Good evening, everybody. It is E-Buck, your boy, and you know what time it is. It's time for another episode of my pod show, I Am Nighthawk, where I talk about the things that many of you are not thinking about because you're sleeping, and I'm up thinking about that part. You should notice a slight difference in how the stream looks. We are actually broadcasting from StreamYard this evening. There's a rationale for that I will explain a little bit later. But in the meanwhile, hopefully you guys are tuning in and checking it out. Please, you can definitely interact with the show in the comments, whether you be checking the show out this evening on Facebook, on YouTube, or this evening on Instagram, which I would like to do more of, and hopefully we can work that out. But at any rate, please post your comments to whatever I'm saying, whether you're looking at it live now or later on, and we will definitely address them at some point in the show or later on after the fact. So that being said, and this live version of I Am Nighthawk this evening, and we do have a comment popping in right now. Hey, Eric, what's going on, Ro? Thank you for tuning in as always. We appreciate you. Definitely would like to hear your thoughts on some of what's being discussed this evening. Chime in as always. You know how we do it. But anyway, good people, tonight's episode, we're talking two things. One, we're actually going to talk about television, classic television shows from the past, some of our thoughts on that. And we actually don't want to just make that a segment, me and my buddy Hugh Lee. We actually want to do that as a podcast in and of itself. We'll discuss that a little bit more later. But first, we're going to talk about the government shutdown and who is the truly secret villain in all this that we definitely should be paying more attention to and definitely should feel a lot stronger about in the scenario. Who might that be? Well, we're going to get right to it, all right? As you guys know, we are now working on at least week 3, I believe it is, of the government shutdown that is affecting the lives of all of us in some way, shape, or form. Yes, it is good that we found a way to pay the troops because they absolutely deserve to be paid for what they do for our country. It is good that they found some ways to pay some of the other folks that's missing out on the checks that they were supposed to receive on the 15th based on what's going on. In the end, as I've stated before on the air, I do not think it's fair that our government officials are able to basically sit around and play it's your fault, and still get paid while the people that truly need their money, the government workers and people of that nature, are suffering in the midst of their foolishness, okay? Now, we know the Republicans are saying, look, man, we're trying to work with you, but we can't do that until you open back up the government like we want, and then we could work on what you guys feel the issue is. Even if we just do it on a temporary basis, let's do that and then talk. Democrats on the other side are saying, look, there is no sense of opening up the government at this point because the true issue needs to be dealt with now, not later than now, but now. And we see one of the major issues being that government subsidies that help people on the Affordable Care Act is not being taken care of at the moment. And we need that money for those people so they can keep their health insurance and keep doing what they need to do. So that's the two arguments on both sides. Bottom line is there is no cooperation going on. There's a lot of voting and grandstanding and ish talking and all that. But we're not getting no satisfaction. Long story short, we the people that they work for are the ones suffering right now. Now, again, as I sit here and look at the numbers for the show, people tuned in. As soon as they saw what I was talking about, right back up out of there, okay? For some of y'all, like I said, these issues are triggering. I get it. You don't want to talk about it. You don't want to think about it. You just want to do. For others of you, what it boils down to is, what can we do? We monkey in the middle of this thing, so ain't no sense of discussing. Yes, it is. Because we need to go there. We need to fully understand why so many people are upset. Keep in mind, yesterday across the country, there was a thing that people acknowledged as a rallying cry called a No Kings Day, where people across the country went out and protested what is going on in our current government, exercising their right to protest and make their voices heard. And keep in mind, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people across the country, okay? Now, there are some of you sitting there, and your life is not affected hardly at all by this. So you figure, okay, whatever. I'm straight. I'm getting my money. My check's coming in. I can go see my doctor, no problem. All of that, okay? This conversation is for the majority of us that's not in a good place right now, okay? I think about just my circle of people, and several of us are in a bad way right now. We got a lot going on, and things ain't looking too cool, okay? We are suffering. We are struggling out here, and what the government is doing right now is making it worse for a lot of folks. Truth be told. Now, all that being said, we already know the Democratic side, the Republican side, El Presidente side. There is another culprit in this thing, and that's what I want to talk about right now. Because if this thing is truly, as the Democrats say, about them wanting to extend the healthcare credits so that insurance is not so expensive, have we not looked at what's really being said? Insurance and stuff is too expensive. Why is that? That's because the main culprit in this thing, the secret villain we need to talk about, is Big Pharma. In other words, the pharmaceutical companies who charge inordinate amounts of money for procedures and medications and such, to where that makes it why we pay so much in healthcare. Okay? Now, before we continue, let me give you a few quick facts that I looked up thanks to Google Gemini. Thank you for this information, Google. According to Google Gemini, what I looked up, it says big pharmaceutical companies are highly profitable and dominate the global market, with the U.S. accounting for a large portion of it. However, they have faced criticism for spending more on stock buyouts and executive compensation than on research and development, aggressive marketing practices, and high drug prices, which can make life-saving medicines unaffordable. Are you hearing what I'm saying, people? It talks about profitability and revenue. According again to Google, the global pharmaceutical market, peep this, was estimated at around 1.6 trillion, that's with a T, trillion dollars in 2023, with the United States making up nearly 40%. Okay? Now, let me hold that thought. Remember, people, the United States is all of 365 some odd million folks, okay? In this world of ours, this big old blue ball we call Earth, we account for 4.5% of the total world population. Okay? In other words, there's 8 billion people on this planet. We account for just a small portion thereof. But because we are seen by rights as the richest country on earth, the pharmaceutical companies are playing it that way. A couple months ago, the president, and this is one of the few things that he has mentioned that was actually good, pointed out that pharmaceutical companies are charging us up to 10 and 20 times more for certain medications than they do our foreign counterparts. We've already had the discussion, thanks to people like Bernie Sanders, who constantly pointed out that if you go across the border here from Detroit in Canada and purchase some of these same medications, they are significantly cheaper than what they are here. Okay? Now, why this means so much to me personally is because right now I am in that boat. Understand, even with the government subsidies, I could not afford my ACA, also known as Obamacare. And some people hate when people call it Obamacare. Ooh, they get mad. But nonetheless, could not afford it. And as a result, that insurance has lapsed. And I'm currently one of the millions of people across the country that is either underinsured or uninsured at this moment. That basically means that any day, if something really bad happens and I have to go get hospitalized, yes, they are required to take me and all that, but in terms of my overall care, yeah, that's a scary place to be in. Thank God for my Obamacare, because if not for that, I would not be sitting here having this discussion with you right now. I honestly know that to be fact. I would not exist, truly. So because of that, I am concerned. I'm also concerned because some of the vital medicines that they feel I need to take in order to stay healthy and good, I am currently unable to afford due to my financial situation. So that basically I'm playing a Russian roulette type scenario with my own life as a result of this. Okay. Now, yes, open enrollment is next month. We'll get to that in a minute. Let me get this comment going. My mother's medication was very expensive. Without her insurance, she wouldn't have been able to afford it. And right now, that's where I'm at, bro. Because 2 of the vital medications that I need is extremely expensive. In other words, between those 2 medications alone, they are over $1,400 a month for just those 2 for 30-day supplies, okay? I don't have that $1,400 right now. I do not. So am I taking those 2 medications at the moment? No. Now, yes, there's other things that you can do. There's GoodRx and all of that. You get partial scripts and all that. How you think I've been surviving these last couple months before that? I know that already, okay? Yes, there are special programs for people who are low income. But check this game out, okay? Understand the median salary for a person in America, which is basically accounting for everybody that's working and accounts for the 1%ers as much as it does for basic employee A, figures out to a little bit under 60 G's, okay? Am I making 60 G's? No. No, I am not. Full disclosure. The poverty line, in other words, the poverty level for people here in America is somewhere around 25K, okay? Am I making more than that? Yes. Yes, I am. So I'm right there in that uncomfortable middle. Am I of a particular age? No, I am not. Fortunately, we do have sense enough to know in America that seniors need more help because they are on budgets due to most of their finances usually coming from government, Social Security, and whatnot. So we tend to work with them more when it comes to things like that. I'm older, but I ain't that old. So don't have that, okay? Basically, if you are under the poverty line, they have a lot of programs for people in that scenario. Again, that ain't me. Now, obviously, if I could afford to get the medicine, I would get them. Obviously, if I had insurance that covered the medicines, I would have it. In the past, that was the case, and that was the case, and I was good. Right now, we not good, okay? Now, again, I mentioned open enrollment, which starts in November. Now, here's the issue. when open enrollment starts and people can go into the system to see what coverage they can get for next year, or basically renew what they got already if they're comfortable with it, you will notice that there will be different prices, okay? It'll be different prices for 3 reasons. 1, because the prices always go up. Every time. Regardless. 2, because without the government subsidies, that price that you probably will be quoted will be based on the fact that as it's set up now, there will be no more subsidies. So let's just say you're paying $200 a month. I wish. Because the subsidies cover the rest. Without them subsidies, you're looking at $500, $600, $700, $800. Maybe even more depending on what you got going. And, you know, your coverage covers your doctor's visits and your medicines, and you have a lot of both of those and all your tests and exams and whatnot. You see where that gets pricey? Because even with government subsidies, we still oftentimes have to pay co-pays and pay for rides to get there and all that good stuff. Because if you got the real good coverage, it's probably very expensive, but you was just very fortunate. Or you fit one of those criteria that I've mentioned about under poverty level or older or what have you. Now, this is crucial, okay? Because while the big wigs over at the pharmaceutical companies are making major money, and let me discuss that right quick, high profitability. Companies like Johnson & Johnson in 2022 made $17.9 billion in profits. That is, they made money, which was obviously over billions, and then on top of that, made an additional $17.9 billion in profits. What's going on, Coach B? Thanks for tuning in, my brother. Bristol Myers and Squibb made $6.3 billion. And again, this is in 2022. Again, according to a 2022 report, Johnson & Johnson spent $17.8 billion on stock buyouts, dividends, and executive compensation. In other words, the people that's in charge, they made some big, stupid bonus money, okay? And keep in mind, we're talking 2022, so that's right around the true end of the pandemic. So a lot of the vaccines and treatments and all of that come into play with that. Is that other company you said black owned? You talk about Johnson & Johnson? No, Johnson & Johnson is definitely not black owned. In fact, I will safely say all the major pharmaceutical companies are not black owned. Most of the top 500 CEO companies also not black owned, which also explains why less than 2% of CEOs in all Fortune 500 companies are people that look like us, okay? So they don't have the opportunity to make millions of dollars a year and then more millions in bonus money. All right? In fact, I got some more. What were the top 10 pharmaceutical companies in the world as of 2023? Now, you can look these up if you want to see if they're black owned, but I'm pretty sure they're not. We got Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Abbott, Merck. We got Roche, Sanofi, AstraZeneca, Novartis, Bristol Myers Squibb, and GSK. Keep in mind, all of these were the people working on vaccines and so on and so forth. And the only one I'm not seeing on here is Moderna. But pretty much all these other companies had some form of the COVID vaccine that they sold to the government and sold across the world and made buku money on that. Big time money, all right? What did they make in 2023 according to this? GSK made $38.4 billion. Bristol Myers, $45 billion. Novartis, $45.4 billion. AstraZeneca, $45.8 billion. Top 3, Abbott, 54.32 billion. Johnson & Johnson, 54.76 billion, and Pfizer, $58 billion. That was 2023. So knowing that they ain't reducing none of these prices, y'all. And the idea, well, yeah, we'd have made big money last year. We can afford to reduce some of these prices. But then I won't get that big bonus that I got last time. And I have to settle for 2023's yacht instead of the brand new one. This is corporate America. This is how we get down in America. Come on now. You know all that ain't going on. You know they're going to add an extra 99 cents, $1.99, $5, $10, whatever it takes to make more money than last year, all right? So as they sit there in those corporate offices right now watching this play out in Congress, in the end, they the winners. Not us, the people. Not whoever in the end caves in or whoever on that side. It is them. Because guess what? They still going to get paid. Guess why? We still need their medicines. Or at least we do. I mean, again, there are some of you who feel some type of way about prescription drugs and whatnot for a holistic approach. Say it's all a scam. You know, I got to give y'all grace on that. I don't know what to say on it. I just got to leave that as it is. Some of y'all feel like these medicines is just that. And it's hard to argue some of that because to some degree, I feel that way too. I mean, they say don't be without these 2 medications that I got. Do I feel a little iffy? Truthfully, at times. But thank God I'm still here at the moment. But I also know both my parents took some of these same medications. And at some point, they both decided to stop taking all their medications. And neither one of them are here now. And I do feel part of that is because they stopped taking their medication. So my dear friends, same scenario. Stop taking their medications. They're not here no more. So how am I supposed to feel at this point about it? I'm kind of sitting on a ticking time bomb in a way in that regard. That part. But anyway, this is only part of the issue, all right? So while Big Pharma is making big bank and the CEOs or whatnot are going to make more money than they ever have this year, regardless of what happens on that end, nothing is really being said about that to that degree. They are the real corporates. They are the real villains in this thing, okay? Bernie Sanders says it all the time. We are the only major country on planet Earth that does not have universal health care. We villainize places like China and Russia. Guess what, though? They got universal health care. Canada, universal health care. The UK, universal health care. Australia, universal health care. Japan, universal health care. Taiwan, universal health care. They probably got universal health care in North Korea, for God's sake. I think even India got universal health care. There's over 1 billion people in India. But here we are, supposedly the richest country on earth, and we can't somehow figure out a way to afford to get the people universal health care and spend some of our government dollars on that as opposed to some of the other ish we spending it on, especially since Doge then went in and cut all these extra things that we spend the money on. That extra money should be going towards that, not adding more dollars to the defense budget so we could play army men in different countries. The people's money should be for the people, right? And for the needs of the people, right? If we need these medications as millions of Americans like myself do, why do we find ourselves in this boat? So yeah, I'm still an independent. I'm not Republican or Democrat, but obviously I'm hoping that Democrats win this scenario because we need them subsidies to make this insurance cheaper so I can do what I need to do. Do they have a generic version of your medicine? In one case, they do, but I have to get approved for that, so I'm waiting for my doctor visit in a couple weeks. The other one, no. Only one thing they make like that, and that's that. And it costs what it costs. Period. Now, it's a possibility they may switch my medications to other stuff because based on my current condition, particularly with the heart condition and the kidney condition, there are other drugs that they may deem better for that. And particularly, I was listening to the commercial about Zepbound today, and they were starting to refer people like myself with those conditions to take it as both a weight loss drug and a way to control kidney function. So I definitely will ask my doctor about that when I go on 12. Again, full disclosure, tell them my business. Yeah, I know some of my family will see this like, why you do that? It's my show. I do what the damn hell I want. Okay. Y'all doing y'all. Love y'all. I do. But sometimes. Okay. Moving on. Anyway. Long story short, people, we got issues. And that's just that one. Understand also, we get into November 1st. It is being said that if this government shutdown remains to that point, the SNAP benefits, which they were already reducing and changing how they deal with, will become not available to a lot of folks. In other words, some of the very means by which some of y'all actually eat is about to be taken away from you, okay? There are some of you with families of 5, 7, 10 folks, and you get SNAP benefits for all of them. And if they cut into that money in any way, shape, or form, it's going to make it very hard for you to feed your people. Because you may be using that to feed everybody while you use your other money that you get from working to contend with everything else the best way you know how. So imagine now a world where you get half of what you get in SNAP benefits, or basically nothing at all, because the work requirements are about to change, so that those of you who are getting it and didn't have to do much in terms of looking for a job, they are basically saying you got to have one. You got to have everything that we need to see that you're looking for a job. And the minute you get one, you up off this thing, flat out. Now, of course, there are people that say, yeah, it's not fair that some people get food. Anyway, particularly anybody that is a male, anybody that is single will have you. Again, that's another argument for another day. And I always point out, good people, when we talk about SNAP benefits and welfare benefits and whatnot, people like to assume, yeah, the blacks, and the Hispanics and whatnot, the majority of people who are on assistance in America don't look like me. They are the majority of the people in this country who happen to be white or Anglo-Saxon or whatever respectful moniker you prefer. Keep in mind, not a racist in any way, shape, or form. White people in my family. Don't go there. Please don't go there. I love all folks, okay? But there is people on earth that don't love me back. And the main reason they don't love me is not because I'm fat or because my name is Buckner or any of that. It's because my skin tone is my sin tone in their mind. And it's sad that we still live in a world in 2025 when people feel like that, when the vast majority of all of us, particularly in this country, are mixed with something. Period. Anyway, while we sit here waiting for what's going to happen next, let us not forget the other people to blame for all this, the pharmaceutical companies. Things need to change. They probably will not. This country is based on making money and profits. That ain't about to change no time soon, unfortunately. Okay. So anyway, that's my discussion on that. Thank y'all who have chimed in so far. When we come back to the show, I Am Nighthawk, we are going to change the whole tone, okay? We're going to talk TV because me and my good buddy Hugh Lee did a segment called Talking TV. We're going to talk about some of the classic TV shows. Join on in. Let us know what you think. Let us know what shows we should do in the future, if this is going to be a show, all that good stuff. And we will be back with that discussion after these words from the Nighthawk Network. Nighthawk Network, people, you know my motto. Our voices for our people.
Hello, hello, hello. It's another glorious day, my T-Steppers, and you know what time it is. I hope you have all of your comforts together because it's time to dish tea. And you're dishing tea, darlings, with Big Meat.
Can't wait. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat.
Darling.
Hold up.
If you're building your dream from scratch, mic in one hand, hustle in the other, this one's for you. Road to Stardom Network and Nighthawk Network present, a podcast for the indie by the indie, all genres, all grinds. From hip-hop to metal, jazz to trap, we're breaking boundaries. And it's not just artists. Entrepreneurs, creatives, and self-made bosses, we see you. We're giving you the spotlight. This ain't mainstream, this is your stream. Coming soon. Be ready.
Long as I wake up in the morning, I'ma get a bag. Get a bag, yeah, I'ma get a bag. Long as I wake up in the morning, I'ma get a bag. Get a bag, yeah, I'ma get a bag. Long as I wake up in the morning, I'ma get a bag. Get a bag, yeah, I'ma get a bag. Long as I wake up in the morning, I'ma get a bag.
Let's talk.
Nighthawk Network presents Pastor Sean Love. Pastor Sean Love, devoted father and husband, a residing pastor at the River Rouge Bible Assembly in River Rouge, Michigan. Join him as he gives us messages from God's Word, Bible study, and encouragement. You can find him on YouTube under Sean Love. He talks sports his way. It's the Guru's perspective.
This is the story about an African-American woman who is passionate about professional wrestling and goes to countless events. She then, one day, gets the idea to start a wrestling talk podcast to talk about her favorite wrestlers and wrestling programs. She has a home podcasting room full of wrestling memorabilia that she uses to do the show, and every week you can tune in and join in the conversation.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? We are back. This is I Am Nighthawk. I am your host, eBuck. We are talking to the people, and right now we choose to talk to y'all about television. As I said, me and my good buddy Hugh Lee, shout out to Hugh Lee, did a segment in regards to talking about classic television. We're thinking about making it a podcast, so we tried it out. Here's what we came up with. Let us know what you think, all right? We are doing something different here on today's show, as we are going to give y'all a preview of an idea that we've been working with for a little while, but we're going to come on and give y'all some different content because, you know, Some of our people, they come in and they're not quite feeling the I Am Nighthawk talk. And some of our people come in and they're not feeling the sports talk. So we're going to talk about something that many of y'all can relate to and understand. That's that thing that we like to talk about called television. Talk to him, Hugh.
Man, we want to talk about a few things, man. It's going to be brief, but we're going to have a good time with it. One of my favorite TV shows, man, and I shouldn't even been watching it as a kid, but as I got older, I learned that they pushed the limits on this show, man, and it definitely made good for TV. One of the shows is Three's Company, and he's going to introduce the next show to you.
Okay, so yeah, we're going to talk some Three's Company, but we also going to talk about a show that had a lot of relatable issues in it as well around that same time. The name of that show is Different Strokes. So for today's Talking TV segment, which hopefully will bring about something that will eventually make a whole show in and of itself, we talking Three's Company, Different Strokes. You know, just our thoughts about it and some of the things going on at the time, because, you know, we're going to give you some perspective of the show and what it was about and the times and the thoughts and all that, because, you know, we are of a particular age, but part of the conversation that you're going to like is the fact that he was a little bit younger than me, but we still about around the same age. So his perspective may be a little bit different than mine when it comes to some of this stuff. And don't worry, we're going to talk about some of the shows that's not quite so old too. We're going to get into shows like The Big Bang Theory and Bob's Burgers and all that type of stuff. You know, but we're talking good quality TV. However, if y'all have a show that y'all want us to throw in the mix, and, you know, it's something we didn't watch, by all means, let us know in the comments, and we will add that to our list. So that without being said, come on, knock on our door. Kind of Talk Three's Company. Now, I got a quick story, Hugh, before we get into it.
Mm-hmm.
Once upon a time, I was a kid at George Ford Elementary School in Detroit. And I just so happened to be kind of chilling, walking the halls, singing a song. What song was I singing, Hugh? Come and knock on my door. Be waiting for you. And you know, not understanding that somebody was behind me listening. It's like, oh, yeah, I didn't know you could sing. Like, oh, I wasn't singing for real. I was just, you know, she's like, yeah, I know you just sing the little theme song. I like that show too, but yeah, it sounded kind of good. Why don't you come in here for a minute? So she takes me, and next thing I know, I'm in the Glee Club. So I will remember Three's Company primarily for that, along with several other reasons. But yeah, what's your early thoughts on Three's Company? Tell us about the first time you ever saw it, man.
First time I ever saw it, man, my brother Albert, man, he used to let me watch stuff I ain't supposed to. But at the same time, he was chilling and just wanted me to be quiet. And then when I watched the show, man, I was looking at it and it was certain things that was going over my head, but I knew it wasn't right because he had such a good time laughing. And once I started to pick up on some of the stuff, man, and what they were saying and what they were talking about, it was just really cool for TV. But some of the cool parts about it, though, is not what I seen when I was younger, but when I got older, you know, because once we got older, it was more exclusive stuff like the behind the scenes and everything. And I really enjoyed that part of it, too, because me growing up and enjoying and liking the show was the cool part about it. But then to see the behind the scenes, that made it even cooler, man, because a lot of things that we possibly didn't know and then seeing the show, just like certain things, like we talk about this damn near every other month or so, man, how we Chrissy, aka Christmas Snow, got put off the show, man. And she was still on the show, but she had a really small part. And I didn't really know what was going on. I don't think you knew what was going on at the time until we saw the behind the scenes.
Right. I mean, because, you know, we learn a lot of these things as we get to learn in the show. I love TV documentaries about TV shows. And there are several good ones. Perhaps I'll post a couple of them that y'all can go check out about Three's Company. They've done a couple documentaries. But, you know, during that time, Chrissy was upset for a reason that a lot of the mid-level actors and actresses was upset. Keep in mind, the way shows were structured back then, you had your main star or your main two stars, and then everybody else kind of get in where they fit in. And the way that Three's Company was set up was Jack was picked first to be the show. And the idea was supposed to revolve around him. He was like the well-known actor of the three of them at the time because he had did bits and pieces of movies and whatnot. So then Chrissy and Janet Snow, Joyce DeWitt, was added later on to fit the narrative. So when it came to the pay scale, it was basically Jack and then Janet and Chrissy. And she felt like they all should be getting paid about the same. Now, it was said that Jack kind of felt like that too, but didn't at the same time. And, as opposed for advocating for her, he kind of played a hands-off role. So while we only saw Chrissy in bits and pieces after, I believe, season 3 was because they were in a contract dispute and they were trying to figure out what they're going to do with Chrissy. So every now and then she'll pop in. I'm in San Diego back home with my family, but, in actuality, they was working things out behind the scenes. And obviously you see how that worked out.
Yeah, it didn't work out at all, man. And was it like her husband, her agent, or somebody giving her the big head and saying something like she should be getting some like J.R. Ewing money from Dallas? Yeah, that wasn't gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind if you look at most of your major TV shows, and there'll be a common theme as we discuss these things, that it was always that one person that wasn't quite happy with how things was set up or what they was getting paid. And behind the scenes, that's why it was a switch. But unbeknownst to us, they just did things. Keep in mind, at the time, when it wasn't no Chrissy, we was like, what the hell? Because, everybody had their favorite. And some people, they preferred Janet over Chrissy. But the vast majority of us, hero kids back in the day, we love us some Chrissy, boy. Because Chrissy had the,
She was real bouncy, too, man. And then, I think that was the character prototype too. And that's what I think would kind of hurt her too at the time too, when she was trying to be serious financially and making her ends meet, that they looked at it like, okay, like they didn't take the character seriously. And that happened on a lot of shows, man. And I'm gonna even get even more up to date with you. Ashton Kutcher, when he played that Kelso role on that 70s show, that hurt him, man, for a long time. But we love Kelso. But money wise, man, people weren't gonna take them serious. Sometimes when you do roles like that and you do it for so long, they look at it like a tight cast situation. And I just didn't think that they took her serious when she was trying to make the money. And but then and again, she kind of talked her way out of a lot, though, man, because she was reaching.
Right.
They were going to give her a good contract.
ABC always saw it as it was Jack's show and everybody else get in where you fit in. In fact, the reason why ultimately they just killed everything else was because Jack was ready to do something a little different. They talked him into what ended up being Three's a Crowd, which was the spinoff to Three's Company. But after a couple of years, he really wasn't feeling that, and the ratings wasn't nearly as good. So that's why he ended up. But keep in mind, later on, of course, he did another show at ABC, 8 Simple Rules, and then, of course, he died during the process of that. So,
tough, man. That was a really tough one to swallow, too, man.
Right, but what we learn is like when you watch the documentaries, Three's Company made Jack a superstar, okay? And understand he was a bit of a superstar already in the fact that Jack Tripper was John Ritter. And of course, John Ritter was the son of the famous cowboy Tex Ritter, who was famous in the Westerns back in the day and also a famous country singer as well. So he was already known in circles in Hollywood as it was.
Because of that name, yep.
Absolutely.
And what's cool, too, I know you ain't a horror movie fan. I'm a huge horror movie fan. I love seeing them in It, the original It, the movie series. I mean, the TV series. I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, man, he paved the way, man. It was just a really good show altogether, man. It was funny. It was edgy. I don't think as many shows get as edgy as that did nowadays, man. It seemed like we took a step back. I mean, you got Abbott Elementary, who does a really funny situation where the show is hilarious and they get edgy, but not too many shows push those limits like that.
Well, see, you got to realize it was really, really pushing the limits at the time.
Absolutely.
At the time when it came out around about 78-ish or so, I was still a kid, you wasn't with us just yet, but I didn't really understand the full scope or why everybody was so bugged out about some of the stuff. Because keep in mind, it was very, very taboo for a dude to be living with two females that he was not married to. Remember, America in the late 70s was still very, very religious in that way. So a lot of people felt like, no, my kid's not watching this mess. He laid up with two females, even though they wasn't in no relationship.
They wouldn't even
look.
Yeah, it was like they slept in separate rooms and everything, but still, man, it just really pushed the limits because, like you said, man, and then the reason how he got in the apartment really pushed the limits because, you know, after that first episode, they had that party. It was like a wild party. They found out he was drunk and he was in the tub. You know, he fixed this. They like, man, you know, we need another room, man. You know, this got to cook, man. You know, he probably be able to do that for us. He practically be. Why don't we get him as a roommate? And then, you know, at the time, Mr. Roper was like, oh, nah, we ain't having that. But then when all of a sudden, I want you to explain the last part of it, man, because that was the bomb.
Keep in mind, that's the most controversial thing about that show. Not so much him living too many, but basically that he was perceived as a character that was.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, anybody in the late 70s, early 80s, we know what that means. That means he was a little sweet, little shit. He was one of the alphabet children, okay? Shout out to Big Money. But you know, the thing was you dealing with two taboo things now. A dude living with two females and a dude pretending to be gay, and back then being gay in the late 70s, early 80s, that was a real bad
on TV or anything too. Remember, the only time I've seen a wild movie like that was like when I was telling you about the original Toxic Avenger. You know, they really pushed the limit, but that was a movie, and it was like more like the Grindhouse movies. You know how grimy and gory and crazy those were. So that was a little different, but to do it on ABC and on TV, yeah, that was definitely something.
On primetime TV at that. But keep in mind, in this prime, Three's Company was a top 5 show. Came on Tuesday night. I mean, they kind of switched the lineup with it, but initially it used to be Happy Days at 8, Vern and Shirley at 8:30, and then Three's Company at 9.
Mazel Tov Incorporated. Yeah, that was my jam.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, hey man, let's start talking about some of them episodes, man. You know,
yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, here's the thing. One of the things that hold on. You go ahead. I need to.
You know, one of my favorite episodes is, man, first and foremost, Larry's supposed to be his best friend. Man, if you my brother like that and me and you supposed to be cool, I don't want you to throw me under the bus like Larry. Larry threw Jack under the bus so many times. The one episode that stood out to me is when he lied and said his name was Jack Tripper, got the one woman pregnant, and then she called looking for Jack Tripper because not only Larry threw this dude under the bus and used his name, this dude used his phone number. So, you know, Janet and Christy pissed off because, you know, they don't believe nothing he say after that lady was on the phone crying. And that's when Larry goes up to tell him, yeah, man, I don't know. I panicked. I told her my name was Jack Tripper and I gave her your number. And that was one of my funniest episodes. But then it was real controversial, too, because you know how it was. You know, a guy, you know, sleeping with a woman and getting her pregnant and then trying to run off. But then at the same time, trying to throw your best friend under the bus. And that's what was controversial.
And understand, that was just one episode like that. Remember the other episode when Larry was dealing with the married girl and he basically put it on Jack. So now all of a sudden, here's the lady's husband looking for Larry. And, you know, basically, he thinking Jack is Larry. So he ready to beat him down.
When my man who played on Weekend at Barney's was on there, man, and he was the mafia dude.
Yep.
The episode was hilarious. Was that the one when he was like, the only way I let bygones be bygones if he died and he faked his death? Is that the one?
I do believe that was the episode also. Yeah, that wasn't that episode, but that was another. I mean, what made Three's Company really good, which we miss so much in television nowadays, is all the characters. And just every character had a layer to them that made you want to be like, okay, I wonder what happens when they ain't around and it's just Larry. What go on in Larry's life? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It was the type of show where it seemed like any of the characters could have had their own show. And in fact, a couple of them end up doing just that.
Yeah, and they had shows like that where it'd be mainly focused on Larry and people of that nature, like a janitor Chrissy. Let's get the skeletons out the closet, man. You already know I didn't have no beef with Mr. Roper. He had some funny moments. I thought he was cool, but the show really took off to me when Mr. Furley went on there. Don Knotts, man, he really made the show on a whole nother level. The two things I did like between the two characters, though, was they both wanted, or like, I think more or less Mr. Roper was thinking things was going on and wasn't going on, and he'll bust in and try to see what happened and nothing was going on. But I think Mr. Furley was anticipating it, man, and I think he wanted something to go on because a few times I think he was pissed off, like, why, nothing happening when I'm thinking is happening.
Right, because remember, it was the one time when he basically was trying to get Jack to go out with his niece or something like that.
Yeah.
Trying to basically turn him back. And then it's like, it looked like it was working and whatnot. So then he was like, yeah, so now that you're not this no more, you got to get out the apartment now. Because, I can't have you with two females if you done straightened up. So, he had to fake back like he was not about that. But then, of course, during those years when Mr. Furley was on, don't forget about Lana.
Oh, yeah, Lana was nice looking, man, for an older woman at the time.
Right, Lana, the original stalker, man, because she loved her some Jack.
Yeah, that was the original cougar, man. The Vinny show, man. You got to say that, man. Before she was a cougar, before cougars even was cool. So
before it was a thing, yeah. And then of course you had the whole thing with the Ropers who ended up having their own show. The Ropers, as a show, it was alright.
Yeah, it just didn't hit.
Keep in mind, I think that's what eventually ended up coming on at 9:30. After Three's Company, they started showing the Ropers for those couple seasons, but they just had a bad ensemble with the Ropers. Mr. and Mrs. Roper, they did their thing, but the little family that lived next door.
And the crazy part was they was funny on Three's Company. Remember, because he was always being nosy, so he was funny on there. And the little kid.
The thing that used to trip people out was, of course, when Helen, his wife, was always ready to and he was all like, nah, I'm straight on that. But then one day, blue moon, he be like, oh, Helen. And she be like, oh, Stanley. And it's on. And keep in mind, that was a model I think that lent itself to part of what went on the show. Married with Children later on.
Damn, that was a good show. We're going to talk about that next,
man.
There were so many things with Al Bundy, man. One thing I did like too with the Three's Company, man, was like some of the crazy situations that happened too, man. Like when they thought Chrissy was pregnant, in the one episode. And it was funny too, because I think one guy was trying to get some paint for an apartment and they thought that they were messing around. And it was just so many good episodes, man, that happened.
Right. And I feel like they kind of took from bits and pieces of shows. And because keep in mind, San Diego was a beautiful place to do that show. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's part of why people view California to this day as kind of a little too liberal of a place, because you couldn't have did that show in like a New York or every South setting to a dude female. I mean, that's something that would only really happen in a place like California at that time.
It was beautiful, the beaches and everything, man. Hey, man, I'm gonna throw you off a little gem. I don't know if you up on, man. On Three's Company at the beginning, I forgot what season it was on, but when Janet was there and it was a little goat and she was playing when she was with the little boy.
Mm-hmm.
You know who kid that is? That's John Ritter's son, man.
Oh wow, I did not know that.
I saw that not so long ago, man. Yeah, but
now, here's something that I think if you noticed at the time we didn't pay as much attention, keeping in mind that we was kids at this point. But if you go back and look at those episodes, particularly maybe the first 3 or 4 seasons, you ever notice how the clothing fit a certain way on the females?
Oh, yeah.
Where you can see certain stuff, you know what I'm saying?
And Chrissy really looked bouncy. Like Chrissy had the bouncies and always had like the real tight shorts. Janet always had the tight jeans and like the little tight sweaters and V-necks. Yeah, I definitely.
But no, you could always see the little,
Oh yeah,
like it was always cold in the room, if you know what I mean.
What was cool too?
And it was like that on a lot of shows back then.
You know, one thing we talk about too that we like, man, and it's something I just not so long ago was on the lady from WKRP Cincinnati. She was the first one to actually apply for her, you know, Chrissy Snow, and she didn't
that
get
would
the
have been a whole different show if Lonnie Anderson had been Chrissy. I mean, I do believe at some point they considered Farrah Fawcett for that role as well. That would have been interesting.
Yeah, I don't think it would have hit as hard as with you
No.
know.
Suzanne Summers was definitely the ideal person to play Chris. Because I don't think neither one of them could have played the dingy of it all. I mean, keeping in mind that it wasn't so much that she was dingy, it's just that she was a PK, which, you know, we know now is a preacher's kid. And that's why she was kind of naive when it came to certain things.
Absolutely.
But in the same token, you know.
Like
now, here's the thing. You know, we always used to think, man, I know Jack did hit at least one of them. I mean, because think about it, Hugh, in an ideal world, if y'all roommates and y'all real tight, like they got to be in, you know, over the years, you know, it had to been some point where Jack done seen them in their panties and they done seen Jack naked. And, you know, I do believe it was the episode where one of them walked in on one of them and it was like, oh my. But, you know, stuff like that. I mean, it's bound to happen in an apartment, particularly that's the little small apartment they had. They only had the little 5 rooms, basically. The little small bathroom, the 2 bedrooms, the big living room, and the kitchen.
Absolutely. So, yeah.
And, you know, they like to drink and carrying on. It was bound to be a night where, you know, they wake up like, ooh, we done laid up on the couch. You know what I'm saying?
And even more controversy added to the show too was when Terry was on there, because remember Terry was an ex-porn star and she got the role. So and that was like really taboo, because it's like, man, you got a person who do those type of movies that was really like to the point where it was underground back then. To do that part, man, it was just a lot of stuff.
Right. And then, you know, there's a couple other people that end up doing other stuff, like, for example, Tanya Roberts, who ended up being one of the Charlie's Angels at some point. She was considered for that role. And you know, that's kind of when it jumped the shark, so to speak, for me, when they switched from Chrissy to the cousin. I was kind of cool with the cousin, you know what I'm saying? She was really goofy. But, you know, she wasn't quite as pretty as, but, you know, you kind of got to liking her after a while. But then when they switched over to Terry, Terry was she was even more plain Jane than Janet was. So it really, that dynamic just didn't work for me.
They had to keep your girl around too, Sydney, because remember, she was going to college and she had to still be on there just to, you know, kind of make things gel. But yeah, that's when it started to definitely lose a little bit of sizzle, man. And I just always look at it, E, and I know you feel the same way. What would have been if, you know, Suzanne Summer would have been able to get the contract she wanted, and, you know, rather than reaching too high, because she was reaching too high, E, I wanted to know what would have happened. And
then, of course, you know, we talking 70s, early 80s, but why wasn't no black people on Three's Company, man?
Man, did we ever see a black?
I don't think we ever saw any black person ever be on the show.
I never thought that, E. And I'm
trying to think if it was even like a scene. I mean, maybe like some extras, but I don't even think it was a scene where they knew a black person. You know what I'm saying? And in California at that time, interracial dating was starting to be a thing and all of that. I think at some point we should have seen some type of episode depicting that.
Because the only thing I think they had was like women who was playing Natalia, who wasn't Italian. You know, that was the closest thing to different race that you actually seen on there too, man. But that's why, E, before we even get off the air, man, we want to kind of get into a show that actually did have, you know, a black and white family, man. And,
which was even more controversial. But before we finish that up, let me finish up with a last thought on the Three's Company thing. Like I said, at the time, it was a lot of, you know, but it was a good show, man. It really was. Now, the other thing that I really hated was in the end, Janet got married, Terry moved off to Hawaii, and Jack ended up with Vicky. And you can't go from being roommates with them females to what
downgrading her. Yeah.
He was supposed to be with a banging female after all that. The Vicky thing, that's what killed it for me.
Yeah, that took everything like went south for me, man. It
Right.
was like
And she was not so funny, and that's why Three's a Crowd just didn't hit at all.
I definitely didn't see that. They needed somebody who was more quirky, at least upbeat, who can hold their weight and kind of mesh with the comedy part of it. It was more like a TV drama versus what we normally was used to, and that wasn't gonna hit anyway.
Nah, it wasn't. But anyway, that's our thoughts on Three's Company. Now let's talk about this second show, shall we?
Yes, sir.
Different Strokes, people. Now that came about, I'll say about 80, 81. Anybody that was anybody has seen that show if you live between the 80s, the 90s, or 2000s. Because even after it came off TV, the reruns was every day. Every day, at least 2 or 3 of the stations was playing Different Strokes. Even late at night.
That's when I used to love too, because remember back in the day that used to come on Nick at Night. A lot of the old school shows, they need to jump off and do that again, man. Damn, that really was a good childhood.
Remember, if you look at some of the digital stations, they do have certain stations, and that's all they play is shows like that.
It's one called Antenna TV. It's Antenna TV when they show all the old school shows.
Decades is another one. ETV, that's another.
Yeah.
And all those are on digital television. All you gotta do is hook your TV up to the antenna. And
IFC still show Three's Company. That's why I be seeing the marathons and everything.
And that's the thing. I think with Antenna TV and MeTV, they usually do a marathon like every weekend of one of those shows.
Because I just saw it on the Facts of Life one, man, which, we'll get into a little bit more of those and get more in depth. But,
well, we're going to kind of touch on some of that because Different Strokes kind of set off a lot of things. But if you go back and know your TV history, because, I'm a TV head, you will learn this as we do this show. This all really started back in the early 70s, Hugh, with the show Archie Bunker, All in the Family. Because what happened was All the Family did a thing, and they started to do spinoffs from that show because that show was highly hot. That was the most popular show on TV for about good 5 or 6 seasons.
One of the most
several shows jumped off from All in the Family. Of course, we know about the Jeffersons, obviously, but did you know Different Strokes kind of happened because of All in the Family? Let me break it down. All the Family had an episode where Archie and Edith went over to, I believe she was her aunt or her cousin, and that happened to be Maude. And Maude basically didn't like Archie, and Archie didn't like Maude, and they had that interaction, and that people was feeling Maude as a character. So that eventually led her to getting her own show. Now, when Maude was a show, she had a best friend that was her lawyer / buddy, person that she talked politics stuff with. Who was that? That actually was the person who ended up being Philip Drummond.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how people came to know him, and they kind of liked his personality. So when it was time to do this show, that was one of the first people that they thought of and casted him in that role as Philip Drummond. Because understand, you could have been an older person, but if you didn't have like a childlike way about you, if you wasn't good with kids, it wouldn't have worked as a show.
Absolutely not.
Philip was cool as hell. He was old, but he could relate. You know what I'm saying? He showed the love for them kids. Now, here's where the problem come in, y'all. Because at that time, we talking.
They wouldn't find that.
Some people seen Different Strokes, and I'm talking about black and white people, and they was pissed. They thought it was highly exploitive. The fact that why the kids got to be adopted by a white dude and why he got to be rich, and people would say, yeah, he got them in there like they some little puppies or something. It was a lot of bad opinions about that show at the time.
Absolutely.
But as a ghetto child in the hood, we love Different Strokes, man. Wednesday, 8 o'clock, 8:30. I mean, they changed the time to Different Strokes so many damn times. But usually it was sometime on Wednesday. And you had to let it. I mean, it was always somebody on that show that you really was feeling, whether you liked the sister. And I must admit, Dana Plato, you know, she ended up doing other stuff in her life. You know, where she, yeah, but you know, you liked her, or you know, of course, it was two superstars on that show. Superstar number one, of course, obviously was Mr. Drummond.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest superstar of them all on that show was obviously the dude that played Arnold Jackson, Gary Cole. And the thing is, at the time, you know, we thinking, damn, he all little and stuff and whatnot, not knowing
we thought he was a kid. We all did.
I want to say either he was the same age or maybe even a little bit older than Willis in real life.
He definitely was older than Willis, I believe.
And that's the crazy part. But you know, he blew up and that show blew up. And it's like you seen Gary Coleman everywhere. All right. Gary Coleman would be on the Love Boat. Gary Coleman would be at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, at the Christmas show, American Bandstand, New Year's Rockin' Eve. I mean, Gary, that show made him a superstar, dog.
Man, I even see something back in the 80s with him and the dude who played Tattoo was out partying and drinking on like a little vacation. Boy, that's crazy.
I mean, Hollywood Squares, pretty much all the little game. I mean, and then of course he did movies off of that. It was like people couldn't get enough of Gary Coleman, dog.
Remember he was on Good Times too, man.
Oh yeah, that actually was before Different Strokes.
Yeah, he did a lot of stuff, man.
Right, and he was on a couple of the other shows. I want to say, it'll come to me, but yeah, it was another show he did before that one also.
He did a lot of shows, man. Like
right. Oh yeah, he played on an episode of The Jeffersons. Matter of fact, remember when George was his uncle?
Well, Wheezy, yeah. When Wheezy was about to prank him, he was getting smart. Yeah.
Yeah. Please don't beat me out, Wheezy. I do remember that
character, man. It was just like he brought a lot of energy, man. And you know what you talking about, Mr. Drummond and Willis, all that blew up, man. And it was just good, man. And we had good TV back then. Remember we talked about that. It was hard as hell for these streaming companies and cable and stuff to try to run in on the 80s because there was so many sitcoms and things that we had to watch that had us preoccupied, man, for free.
Right. Now, keep in mind, if you didn't like the characters on the show, one of the things about Different Strokes, they always had guest stars on there, dog.
Yeah, a lot.
I mean, black and white for that matter. I mean, think about the show, the episode when Reggie Jackson was on there. And Willis got him to be his father for the little father-son thing that they was doing. You remember that episode?
Yeah. Janet Jackson was on there.
Okay, we got to hold off on that. Don't go there just yet. Okay, the episode when the champ was on there, Muhammad Ali.
Yeah. Mr. T,
that episode, absolutely. And Arnold was little Mr. T. Big T and Baby T.
Really good TV.
I mean, it just lended itself to a lot of possibilities because, you know, Mr. Drummond being super rich like that, it made sense that he knew some famous people.
Open the doors, man, for all the celebrities to be on there.
Right, but you know, here's something I thought about today, Hugh. It was a few people from Sanford and Son end up being on that show. Oh, remember the episode when Aunt Esther was playing like she was hurt with the neck brace and whatnot, and they was trying to prove it faking?
You gotta love Esther, man. She was one of the funniest people on TV. I don't think they give her flowers, man. How good of an actor she was.
It's funny because most of y'all probably know her from the beginning of the movie Friday when she played the Jehovah's Witness.
Oh yeah. Hey, you remember the episode too when Todd Bridges won the beauty pageant? That was a good one, man. That was one of my favorites.
And then of course you gotta remember the episode where the dude that played Grady on Sanford and Son was playing like he was related to them and was trying to get them thinking that he was going to inherit some money.
Oh yeah,
because you know, Mr. Drummond had signed over some of his money to them already before he died.
trying to get the assets, man. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And then we had that controversial episode that we was gonna talk
Which
about.
one? It was a few controversial episodes of Different Strokes.
The toy store, man. With the dude doing the movies with them, man, half dress or in their underwear wrestling.
Yeah, there was that one.
Him, and he had all that kitty porn and all that crazy stuff in that shop. Yeah.
And then it was the episode about the dude that was treating Willis funny because he was black when he was an intern and whatnot. There was that one.
We can't forget about the bully man too, who used to always beat him up.
How could you forget the famous Gooch, man? To this day, when we think of a bully, that's what we want to call him. Like, oh, he like the Gooch. Did we ever see who the Gooch was?
I ain't seen Gooch, man. I remember one time.
I don't think we did.
Who threw the garbage can at him and he beat up the garbage can and threw it back, man? That was funny, man.
I remember that. I don't think we ever physically saw who the Gooch was. It might have been episode 2 where we see like some arms or something like that.
That's what made that funny too, because we never seen the Gooch. I at least thought we was gonna see the Gooch once, man.
Right.
I never seen it.
Now, here's where they lost me. Basically, when old girl ended up going to Eastland, that is the sister, and starting the whole Facts of Life thing. Of course, we'll talk about Facts of Life at some point.
Yeah.
Then, of course, they eventually bring in somebody to marry Philip, and she brings her little redhead son.
Sam,
that he annoyed me so much. He was annoying, bro.
I think that's at the time, and they always try to do this on TV shows. Remember, they made fun of it, like in that 70s show when they were saying when a TV show started to lose its spark, they get like a little younger kid, or you get a chubby kid, on the show. Then to try to fill the void, and that was the truth, man. Because I wasn't digging that little kid, man.
No, Sam.
And that's when it started to fall off too. That's when they had to hurry up and do something.
Right, and then of course they brought the other maid that wasn't Miss Garrett. I ain't too much care for her either. Joanne, I think her name was. I want to say. Yeah, I mean, they basically did a lot of changing of the show on the fly, and then of course it really didn't fit that. Here's Arnold trying to be a high schooler. And Willis is in college and all that. You just wasn't buying the storyline so much after that.
No, it definitely, unfortunately, sizzled out, man.
Right, but like I said, you had that show, and then of course, like I said, Fact of Life spun off from that. But then you remember another spinoff from that show? You remember Hello Larry?
No, you don't remember Hello Larry.
Basically, Hello Larry was the show where his buddy Larry was his army buddy, Philip. So he would come visit them from time to time. And then he would bring his daughters. I want to say Annie and he had the younger daughter that would hang out with Arnold and them, and then it was the older daughter that was hanging out with the big sister or whatever. I can't think of their names, but yeah, that eventually led to a spinoff called Hello Larry. That only lasted probably about a season and a half, because Hello Larry was supposed to be Larry ends up moving to Seattle to be a TV producer or whatever, and run this TV station. It was kind of supposed to be like the television version of WKRP in Cincinnati, so to speak. But it just didn't. It just didn't hit like that.
Yeah, and I wasn't feeling the fact, because remember, I think I was definitely too young, but I wasn't feeling that Webster spinoff either. That was terrible, man.
Man, again, some of these spinoffs, they end up, hell, we already know the best spinoff of all time was the Jeffersons. It ended up being on TV longer than All the Family did.
Absolutely, man. And it's one of the best series that just lasted forever, man. The Bundys, man. They really showed us the difference, and they tipped the scale, because we always thought that we were poor. But when they had a white family in Chicago who's living in, like the poor part of the neighborhoods, man, that really changed everything, man, because we didn't ever see that part of, television, And
it was one of the first time we really started to see TV be more diverse. Because Al had all type of friends. He had black friend, had fat friend, white friend, had his old football buddy friends. It was
my boy cool was like Murph. Murph was like one of the funniest characters. He was just as funny as Al, man. But yeah, that was a really good show, man. And
we'll definitely get into that one point. But back to the Different Strokes. Janet Jackson. them middle seasons when Janet was on there as Charlene or Charlotte, was it Charmaine?
I think it was in Charlene.
Or Charlene. It was one of them. Anyway, she was 4. I mean, people was in love with Janet Jackson at that point.
Because she was at that beauty pageant when he won. I think they were pissed off because it was supposed to have been an all-girl beauty pageant.
Right. I think she was actually in the pageant too, I want to say.
Yeah, so yeah.
And it was a whole discussion with them, and that's what led him to go get in it. But yeah, when they broke up, that episode, hilarious. And then he had Arnold went to set them back up with each other, and he's like, I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to you. And then they looked at each other. And I'm sorry, they wasn't acting at that point. I think she really liked Todd Bridges in real life. And I know he liked her in real life.
I think something was definitely going on between them two, man.
The way they looked at each other in that moment, it was like, oh, it'll be on for real.
Because did you hear the interview when he said that he was telling the producers, man, I gotta have this girl on the show. And he didn't stop until she finally got a chance to get on there and appear on the show.
Right, because she came a long way from being Penny, boy.
You ain't lying, man. She definitely
it's like you almost can't even really equate the two of them as the same person. You know what I'm saying? She played a totally different character as Charlene than she did as Penny on Good Time.
Absolutely, man. But big ups to the Kim Fields, speaking of facts of life and her family, her mom, how she did a good job. And she did the controversial scene with the iron on Good Time.
Yeah, remember, for those of y'all that don't know, Chip Fields is Kim Fields' mama, and she was the one who played Penny's mama on Good Times that burnt her with the iron. And talk about one of the most controversial scenes in television. We'll definitely talk about that when we get to Good Times. But yeah, and then of course her sister, Chip Fields, not Chip Fields. What is her sister's name?
Kimberly.
Kim Fields' sister.
I'm trying to see. I forgot her name.
But anyway, she ended up being on TV as well later on down the line.
There and there, yeah.
It's funny because I think one of the roles that she put in for was to be the Lisa Turtle character on Saved by the Bell, but she didn't get it.
That's pretty interesting. That's pretty interesting.
Exactly. And then remember they had the new class on Saved by the Bell too, and the Bianca Larson character she put in for that as well and didn't get it.
She definitely paying out. Did she do Family Matters? She ended up doing Family Matters.
She did play on a couple episodes of that, as I recall. But I think I remember her really from Moesha, when Moesha went to college. And the girl that used to always get into it with her, the one who called her Hoesha, that was Kim Fields' sister. Alexis Fields. There you go. But Different Strokes. I mean, to this day, I actually got that on DVD somewhere. So, when I feel like watching something a little different, I pop in that and go back through my memories, dog.
Yeah, because I think I got a lot of them too, because before they really started doing stuff like streaming on TV, you had to get those whole box sets, which wasn't really that bad. You could get mostly all of them for like 50, 60 bucks.
I mean, to this day, you can go on Amazon and they have a lot of them on sale, or you could actually go to Walmart and it's that one little section over there in the TV section where they have a lot of those complete seasons of all of it.
Beat that neither. That's always was worth a good buy, because now they even cheaper than what they used to be, man. They like probably $20, $30.
Right.
Now.
So I say, as we get into these discussions, the people out there, particularly y'all parents, man, if you want to get your TV back right and introduce your children to what quality television was like, go and buy some of them box sets. That'd be some ideal stuff to watch on the weekends or during the holidays, as opposed to, if y'all don't want to watch football or whatever, throw some of that on. Go back down memory lane.
My niece Tiffany makes sure she had all them kids watch all the good stuff like the 80s TV when we were growing up. And, she a horror movie buff too. So, the kids watch a lot of the horror movies too. But, man, she definitely raised them kids right as far as watching them on the 80s and like the different sitcoms we was growing up watching.
Absolutely. So, but we're going to, cut the conversation here. But look, hopefully y'all liked us talking about TV. We want to know, is this what y'all want from us? Would y'all like to have us have more discussions like that? We definitely want to do this show. And, help us figure out a good name for the show also. You know,
We
we just
definitely-
they've been talking TV, but you know, if y'all come up with a better name for it, absolutely. And of course, if y'all got other shows y'all want us to talk about, and you know, jump in the comments and all that, by all means, let us know what shows y'all want to talk about. I mean, because between me and this dude, we done seen some of everything. And it might be a couple shows that we might want to actually go back and revisit once y'all throw it in the mix.
Absolutely, because there's a lot of shows that I remember, man, and one of them is like one of my favorites as a kid, man. And you know, I used to get bullied for this, but I used to love watching Punky Brewster, man. And the funny thing is, I just seen Cherry today, man, and I was like, wow, you know, it's pretty cool to see, you know, like some of the people we grew up watching, you know, and see what they're doing.
And it's crazy how like people like Cherry Johnson end up being, you know, characters in multiple TV shows. And then of course, Punky herself, the great Soleil Moon Frye, man. I mean, she a whole parent out here now. And remember, I do believe years later, they rebooted Punky Brewster for a season.
There, because I remember they rebooted on Full House too. Remember Fuller House?
Okay, well, you know, I think we may actually dedicate a whole show or two to the reboots because it's several of them. But yeah, like I said, hopefully you guys like this, and you know, let us know what you think.
We definitely appreciate it because we want to do this, and we definitely feel like we want to do something a little different from the people who don't watch sports and who just want to chime in and you don't give their input on things.
Absolutely. So you know, till next time we talk TV, man. We'll holler at y'all.
Yes, sir.
All right, good people. Hopefully y'all enjoyed that discussion on classic TV shows. I very much enjoyed it. I do actually want to do that as a show. At least from the people in the comments, y'all seem to have liked it as well. You're already coming, in fact, with some of your fun facts like this one here. Janet Jackson wanted to play Charlene as a shift in career trajectory, but she hated being on Fame. That was a Joseph Jackson decision. Not surprised by that. You've already come up with some possible names for the show. Old school sitcom talk show, says Coach B. TV dinner for two. I kind of like that one there. Sitcom T. Shout out to Big Meech. TV Nostalgia is a good name, says Road. Well, like I said, we'll kick the can about that one a little bit, but apparently y'all liking the theme of it as well. So yeah, I think we actually are going to do that as a show down the line. Hopefully you enjoyed this show. I Am Nighthawk, and what we talked about. We talked TV, and we also talked about government and big pharma and them charging way too much for these medicines and whatnot. I think I want to end the show by just basically saying a basic prayer. Please, Lord, watch over us in these troubled times. Please help us, whether we have needs financial or mental or physical or whatever the case may be. Help us to get to where we need to go and help us either have the strength to deal or the strength to get it done. I pray, amen. So amen on that. And that being said, we're going to call it a show. We will catch up with you next time. When all fails, don't stress, be blessed. Put your hands together like I just did and pray to the good Lord to deal with the rest. All right? Until next time, good people, this has been I Am Nighthawk. Amen, says Coach. The StreamYard edition, keep in mind, because of financial situations, I got to consider different things. Will we be back on StreamYard? Maybe, maybe not. We'll talk about it. Anybody in the network that see this, yeah, we'll discuss some stuff going on. Go Blue, absolutely good win yesterday, y'all. We is gonna be out as soon as I remember what I did with the outro on this platform. There it is. We out.